Yeah, I would
Yeah,
say let's we'll move on to this is a good lead into the stock. You're talking a little bit about the stock and investment portion, I guess, of Rivian stock, and I think you bring up a good point, Ted, that there is a lot of opportunity for Rivian to really monetize if they can produce a whole bunch of these trucks. That's my big concern. And the current valuation is like 28 billion or 30, it's around 28
yeah,
billion. I'm looking at, but it got as high as 150 billion market cap valuation at one
yeah.
point. I wonder if it'll ever get back there or when. So there's certainly a lot of excitement around the stock soon after the IPO. It's come down dramatically since, and you can argue whether 28 billion is way too high or appropriate or too low. I guess we can talk about that too. But I guess Robert, just on you mentioned you're kind of in the manufacturing engineering space. You know what it takes a little bit to build an electric car, and Elon has mentioned a few times. Building prototypes is easy, but mass producing the EV is 100 times harder. And I take him at his word at that. Like you just see so many other people failing when they get to that mass producing part. Um,
Yeah.
do you think like what Rivian, what you've studied, and do you think they have I know they have a lot of Tesla people there, ex-Tesla people, but do they have RJ sleeping on the factory floor with his top engineers working out, the kinks of how parts are being made or supplied?
I honestly think RJ is too bougie to be sleeping on the floor, so probably not. He's probably
I do
sleeping on the
too.
cot on the
I do
floor.
too.
But no, I mean, so production wise, yeah, I think that they know what they've got to go through. At my last company, and I can't disclose it because I'm under NDA for it. I know that they reached out to my company and they're like, "Hey, we need your help. You are the leader in this marketplace. We need some help." And I know that we sent a whole entire team up there to actually go through part of the drivetrain, and I'll leave it at that because I think I can get away with saying that. And actually working on the drivetrain and actually figuring out how better to do it. So yeah, I think that if they don't have the engineering know-how, they know really quickly how to throw some cash at it, go find the leading market in that industry, and then go from there. I think that they absolutely know exactly where to go and exactly how to get the answers they want. But again, they've also got all that ex-Tesla alum that has now come over and said, right, this is what we experienced during our production. This is how I think we can better prevent it the next time. But I also want to harp back on something as well. The Ted was mentioning, the fleet services. I happen to know at least 4 companies that are in talks with them for fleet vehicle R1Ts. There's also, the whole entire electric delivery platform that Ted was talking about. I mean, that in itself is just a gold mine on its own. And the fact is, they got the SaaS platform with the fleet delivery system, plus the EDP, and possibly the R1T. Could we maybe see a collab between the EDP delivering to bulk centers, from hubs, and then the R1T actually pushing out past there? I think the ecosystem, allows itself to do that. So I think that they're there, but from a production side, I think that they're there. They've just got to get that last, little bit on. It was funny actually with my last company. I actually saw some of the early drivetrain parts, and actually saw the problems that they were having. And when I picked up my truck, the first thing that I did was I went and looked at those parts. And I was like, yeah, they are actually actively making these changes based on input from people. So yes, they're, that as Elon said, prototypes are easy. Anybody can make a prototype. I mean, I would challenge that a 2-year-old could make it. But at the same time, also, you're trying to go through production and take the same thing that you've got. Another great example is Archimoto. Archimoto with their prototypes versus the production and going through the ramp that they're at now, is a great indicator there. And I've helped Mark and the engineering team there, and they're going through the same thing. And COVID definitely doesn't help, but at the same time, there's ways around it.
Sure. I guess, another question on that, though, is to what extent is it truly just a manufacturing issue versus, and a scaling issue versus, a design and kind of like an integrated company-wide issue that Rivian is seeing. So, for example, you guys love your suspension, but presumably there's a ton of, parts and nuance that goes into producing that, which, Tesla has been kind of known for their minimalist design, which some people hate. So Rivian's got a nice niche of people who don't like the minimalist design of Tesla, but I think there's a reasonable argument to be made that minimalist design and kind of stripping everything unnecessary out of the car does enable a higher potential for gross margins once you kind of get to that scale. So
yeah, I absolutely agree
things like
that,
that in mind, and
the minimalistic approach to it, the Tesla took, you basically it goes back to the old adage: what do you need for a car? Four wheels, an engine, and a body. That's all you need, and that's exactly what Tesla did. They're like, okay, we have four wheels, a motor, a battery, and a frame. We're done. Ship it. Done. Rivian's gone and said, right, yes, we've got the basics, but we're not just a basic car. We are an adventure vehicle. And again, they keep referring to themselves. They're not a car manufacturer. They're an adventure vehicle company. And so they've taken that and they've said, right, true to our roots of being an adventure vehicle, this is what we've got, and this is what we've pushed. So yeah, could they make an R1T Lite, for example, which has got a super minimalistic dash with no wood or just a straight plastic dash? Yes, they absolutely could.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to? Maybe. Sometime maybe down the road, 10, 15 years. But at the same time, I don't think that that's in their mantra. And with that, I think they want to live to that higher class that they've come across. So
yeah. No, and that makes sense to me. But so then that just kind of begs the question of, they're presumably either going to have kind of lower gross margins and hope the software side of it can scale up, which it very well could. But they would need some of these other software applications to become that source of margin to kind of turn the company on profitability.
Well, I honestly think what they're going to do is they're going to leverage the EDP side of it. I mean, right now, yeah, they're partnering with Amazon for their deliveries. But I mean, you look, you've got FedEx with their trucks, you've got DHL with their trucks, you've got UPS with their trucks. I mean, there's three big examples right there. It would be nothing for them to maybe, going back to my point earlier, maybe taking that Georgia plant, making it an EDP version only. And that's what actually sustains the company. You look at Tesla right now, you got the S and the 3 that are really sustaining the company. And then you've got the play toys like the Roadster and the Semi and the battery. Well, maybe Rivian's going to do the flip. They're going to take the EDP as the holder, and that's actually what's going to sustain the company going forward. And then the R1T, the R1S, the R2S, the R2T, whatever future products they got down the pipeline, that's going to be the toys that they push out. They're not planning to make the profit from the trucks. They're just using that right now as a base product to get out there.
I think I mean, to that point, I've always viewed the fleet as kind of the potential cash cow. And I think to Matt's point, is it a question of design or is it a question of, simply getting parts and manufacturing? I think in this environment, it really is getting the parts and, more importantly, getting parts to the destination where they have to be. And I say this, I say, like, Rivian has something Tesla didn't have in 2012, and that's like cash and great corporate credit. And like, I saw this with Tesla. As Tesla became more profitable and credit got better, like panels inside the cars got a lot nicer. They're a lot softer. That's not a coincidence, right? And it's one of those things where, having some procurement experience, like, Rivian can go to a manufacturer for a particular panel or headliner and say, hey, listen, we're making 25,000 this year, but if we hit 50,000 or 60,000, you're going to discount us on this as we scale and as we grow with you as a partner, right? Like, for me, I think that's happening in the background, and like, like to achieve gross margin, I think that they realize that the vertical integration is really important. And I think, and they're making the right moves for that.
Yeah.
It's get these things to market and then improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
Ted
agree
and Robert,
completely.
yeah, I think you both mentioned that you own some amount of Rivian stock. You know, up to you if you want to disclose what percentage of your portfolio it is or not. I don't think it's too much, or I don't recall if I asked or got into that detail. But what are your thoughts, I guess, on the stock in terms of like, you know, right now it's at near lows, right? What's your holding period? I mean, it seems like you're in it for the long term. Both of you guys, you kind of see the potential in the business in the long term. And like, what market cap do you think it could realistically get to in, let's say, 5 or 7 years from now? I guess. I mean, what's your guesstimate if you had to put your finger in there and figure and like guess? Someone said, "What do you think it's going to be at 5 or 7 years?" Maybe we'll start with you, Ted. What do you think?
I would say 5 years, 400 billion minimum. And I'm coming up with that number with just the current state of the pickup truck market. You add on what Land Rover used to be at the time, and then you sprinkle a little extra in for commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is another leg for growth for Rivian.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go ahead and say it now. Like if you notice where they're building their own chargers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like on the trails, and they're kind of pre-mapping these. I'm not an off-roader by any means, but when my son's old enough, I'd love to go camping. I think ecotourism can actually happen with Rivian. Like they, with Driver Plus, you have these pre-mapped off-road trails with the charging stations, and then they could build in like nice like cabins or lounges in the woods and stuff.
Cool.
Like
Yeah.
that's the Rivian experience. I think and it's part of their brand ethos, right? And I think that opens up like a whole other avenue of revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Robert? What are your guesses?
I'll agree. So I mean, I'm not going to be so high on my market cap for them. I would say that my market cap I would suggest to them would probably be about 350. But what I also see is them spinning off the EDP portion of it to its own fleet services section on its own. I think that, to what Ted said, I mean, that's their major cash cow or could be their major cash cow. The ecotourism is really an interesting aspect. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, all their charges, are placed in those spots. So, I mean, again, it bodes to their ethos really, really well. So, yeah, I'll agree with that one, Ted.
Yeah, and mind you, I was the crazy guy in like 2012, 13, saying Tesla would be 4,000 one day before Kathy Wood was a thing. All right, just putting it out there.
Yeah, I hear. I was crazy, Matt. I was crazy back in 10, 11, 12. Well, 2013, 14. I guess after they had the successful Model S, you could start dreaming of the Model 3. But initially, dreaming of the Model S being successful, getting them from a 3 billion market cap to 30 billion market cap was what I was dreaming up, and that seemed crazy back then. But
and also like I mind you, like I was following Tesla before Dave even had his newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
So he was on the investor discussion forums.
I remember that. Yeah, I was probably on the Tesla Motor Club's forums with you. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
What was your username on there? Do you have one on the?
I do. It's very true.
I remember that one. I think I remember that one.
Don't mind that. Yeah.
I remember that one.
But yeah, like a lot. I see a lot of old Tesla in Rivian now, except we're in a crazy macro environment right now. But I know people always say keep the company separate from the product, but for me, it's always been like the company manifests itself in the product.
Yeah.
The care, the execution, it's there.
So
it's there.
Like a 400 billion, 350, 400 billion market cap that you guys are both kind of throwing out there in 5 years. That would be like approximately a $400 stock price, assuming they didn't have any dilution, any significant, dilution, which, I'm just thinking like, I guess it's maybe possible if they're doubling production every year, they go from 25,000 this year, let's say like 250 million revenue to 500 million revenue next year. That would be $1 billion in revenue. You have $2 billion. I don't know. They'd have to really ramp up on the software as a service stuff, I think, and get a lot of volume
I think
out
that's
there.
I mean, Tesla's proved that is doable. I mean, the software really, and never being a Tesla owner, the Tesla software is what really sells Teslas right now. The cars are boxes. They're the simple boxes, but it's the software inside of it, full self-driving and whatnot is really what sells it. And I think that they could tap the software side of it to actually really give them that edge. So
I think you need to take a ride in an S-Plaid, Robert. It's not the software.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would disagree with that. Like most people don't like the full self-drive. The take rate on it is actually super low. And part of what I saw as the bull case for Tesla back in the day was that, their software margins would eventually get to the point where, they could have best in class, margins. But what you saw instead is that they just got like their take rate continued to go down for their software options, but their manufacturing prowess just got so ridiculously good that they're, seeing these 30% gross margins while keeping their operating expenses lean. And so they're, now at the point where they're generating, over $2 billion of free cash flow per quarter. And that's what's kind of justifying their $1 trillion market cap. So, as I'm looking forward, and I appreciate kind of your point of view and the healthy, discussion, but I don't see how Rivian can kind of get to those types of levels without either figuring out the manufacturing problem and I don't know how you do that without simplifying the design more than they have, or significantly ramping up the delivery vehicle space, like you were saying. I think that's maybe the most viable path, and maybe you spin that out separately, like you were saying, because I do think there could be some brand tension with like if your cash cow is these like delivery vehicles that are kind of boxy and cute looking. That's kind of a different ethos than kind of the company's core outdoorsman, camping thing that seems so ingrained into the company culture. But I could see, that $400 billion valuation maybe coming to fruition if they're able to do some of the really transformative stuff on like the software side and kind of integrating with delivery services. To me, that seems like the more viable option than just doing it purely on the back of kind of like the R1S and the R1T and kind of the outdoor camping. But what do you guys think? Am I off the boat with that assessment or?
I think you're a little off the boat on that one. Just, I mean, the coming from the production world, it is doable. I mean, yes, I'm gonna pull a long one here. Lamborghini, okay? Lamborghini doesn't make thousands of cars. They make hundreds of cars. But at the same time, you have a very exquisite car that is exceptionally well put together, with a ton of features in it. Not nearly as many as, say, the R1T, but it's there. You go look at Land Rover and the Discoveries and the new Defenders. I mean, again, they've got all the creature comforts that you could want, and they're doing it at production. I think it's just going to take them a little bit of time to get the production side of it up and running, and then you're going to have that steady steam revenue. I don't think it's going to be a 30% gross margin on parts. I'm thinking they're probably going to be closer to maybe the 15, 17, maybe even the 20% at the utmost. But they're going to keep to the holistic approach that they've got now, which is, they do want that outdoorsy environment, and that's why they've got it with the feature set that they've got. And I think that they're going to keep that going because that's honestly, that's what they built their brand loyalty around. You go look at any of the service centers, or you go look at the headquarters. I mean, it's outdoorsy like you wouldn't believe. And it's almost to the point that it's sickening outdoorsy. But you go look at the Ventura campus. It's oodling plants and everything. I don't need that when I go to a service center to get an oil, to get a tire change. I just need to get in there, get a tire change, and get out again. I don't need to have 15 different flavors of water while I'm sitting there. I just want to sit there, get my tire changed and get out. but I think that they've catered to that, and I think that unless there's a pivotal change in their systems, like RJ leaving, for example, and someone else stepping in, I think they're gonna stay that route because that's what RJ is about. So
Yeah, and Ted, how about you? I mean, what's your perspective on that? Because you were kind of making the case, if I understand you correctly, that they could get to that $400 billion market cap target just based on the back of the manufacturing of the truck. Is that right?
Of the
The R1T and the R1S and
yeah, I actually think they could because the addressable market is huge. Especially we're just talking America now. We're not even going global yet. But like America, the pickup truck market is absolutely huge, and I think like, well, I mean, Rivian is positioned to scale their electric vehicles much better than the incumbents, GM and Ford. Unfortunately, I mean, I'll tell you, like on the production side and also on the sales side, like what's going to kill GM and Ford are those dealers. They're going to just totally, they're going to kill the sales.
Yep.
Like people will still pay, but it'll be a sour experience versus Rivian where they bring it to you, they give you that walkthrough if you want it. It's just a better customer experience. But to the point about the fleet and the trucks themselves, the architecture and let's call it like the battle testing is one and the same. Because like all these delivery trucks, they go through like hell, basically in terms of durability, as do the R1Ts when they're rock climbing in Colorado or something. It's the same amount of like wear and tear. So the platform is going to be tested, and I think to the point about scaling and manufacturing, I've been trying to articulate this, but with Tesla, they will look at something and say, okay, this part is pretty good, but how can we make it better and even cheaper? And then they'll make a proto like they'll make another version of it that nobody makes. So then now they have to go to a supplier, and then the supplier has to make it and ask Tesla, okay, how do we make this, right? For Rivian, I think they're not gonna they won't really go that extra step unless needed, right? And I think that's like the key difference in terms of why Rivian will scale quicker, right? They're not going to break KUKA robots and then reprogram them and then get them the manufacturer to make it. They'll put things together that, for better or worse term, are off the shelf, but will gain on price improvement and speed with quantity.
And so that's a more profitable way to handle it in your opinion than kind of the customizing.
It's a faster way. I think it's a faster way, and I think like when you can't squeeze any more out of your with your scaling, right? Then they'll go to that next phase versus Tesla where it's like, all right, let's try and do this now, right? I think like Tesla is now at that point where they can do that, right? And they the shared engineering of SpaceX and all that good stuff, they could do that. But I think with Rivian,
the point
especially
to that,
right now with their
the point to that, Ted, is the fact that Tesla has and Elon said this time and time again, he hates traditional engineering. He's like, you know what? Why even have the part to begin with? Why do we need this part? If you go back, to the S days, they had the fiberglass blanket that was on top of the batteries. Nobody knew why they had the fiberglass blanket. Someone said it was for safety. Someone said it was for health and services. And Elon said, well, if we don't need it and it's not doing anything and it's just costing us money, why do we even have it? Get rid of it. Let's simplify it. And you've seen this through his SpaceX portion as well as from Tesla production, is that they look at parts and they're like, do we need this? No. All right, what can we put in its place, or do we even need anything in its place to actually even take that spot up? So I mean they've got a whole different mindset to look at a part, whereas Rivian on the other hand, I think looks at a part and says, right, this is how it's been done. This is what we know is battle tested. Let's go from here as a battle tested portion and move forward.
So both of you guys also, or do you, I don't know, I think Ted, you'd mentioned you own a lot of, probably proportionally, significant portion more Tesla stock, and you've been invested a long time in that. We already talked about on here. So you're bullish on the Tesla stock. What's and maybe Robert, I can ask you the same question in a second. But Ted, what's your like 5-year prediction on Tesla stock? I mean, it's about $1 trillion market cap. What do you think? I mean, you kind of said Rivian could be a 10x from here or more if it's at $30 and could go to 400 billion after dilution, maybe 10x. Maybe we're saying, I don't know. But what do you think about Tesla in 5 years? I guess, Ted.
5 years. Well, depends on this 20-1 split. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
take
market
today's.
cap. Think about the market cap.
Yeah. Market cap, I think easily 3 trillion. Easily.
3 trillion. Okay.
Yeah. Again, not financial advice.
No, none of this is financial. We'll have a big disclosure shown at the beginning.
Yeah, big disclosure. But it's like there's. Let's remove optimists aside. I think if full self-driving, and I've sat in some betas, comes to fruition, when it does, that's just going to be such a like Elon says profound, but it really is going to be profound. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying this since the beginning. Whoever makes the first true full self-driving car wins the entire auto market. And I say this because you can charge whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You can charge whatever you want because you will never have to pay for parking again. You don't have to drop your kids off at school. It could do anything for you, and people will pay whatever you want for it. Yeah. So, people joked and called Adam Jonas crazy when he talked about robotaxi, but it is that alone would get them 3 trillion. Mm-hmm. But let's even remove Tesla Auto. Forget Tesla Auto, right? And I said this in the Twitter thing. Mm-hmm. Tesla Energy is like a big deal. Mm-hmm. And people can't.
That's Matt's.
They don't grasp this because we take energy on a daily basis for granted. Mm-hmm. But like, it's so big. Like I have Tesla Powerwalls and solar panels, and like to look at my house charging, it's like holy crap! Like I am my own power plant. Yeah. Let's think about that. Like this is gonna piss off a lot of like utility supplies and all that stuff, but Tesla Energy is even a value proposition for them. So they don't have to make peaker plans and do anything like that. And then you have the Tesla Energy trading platform. I forget the name of it, but basically it buys and sells. Auto bidder. That's right. Auto bidder. You have auto bidder, and like, oh my God, like you have your own energy day trader, right? This is just money in the bank for Tesla that's generated from the sun. So it's like, there's so many avenues of justification of market cap there that people can't even wrap their heads around it. What just and again, like I know we're talking about Rivian, but like on the Tesla side, imagine they take that heat pump and they stick it in your house, mm-hmm. right? They handle the solar, the roof, the permitting, the battery, and the HVAC system in your home. What's really left? An electric stove. Done. We could do that, no problem. Inductive heating. The Rivian can have that in the tunnel, right? Yeah. Like there's so much potential there for when Tesla matures that it has that next phase of growth. So that's why I tell you 3 trillion.
Robert, what do you think about Tesla? I mean, I don't know if you're able to disclose if you invest or you're bullish or not on the stock. It's got a 1 trillion market cap right now. What are your kind of thoughts on the next 5 years for Tesla, the stock, if you have any to opine on?
I absolutely am a Tesla holder. Funny story, I've never actually bought Tesla stock. I actually bought Maxwell Energy. And I got Maxwell Energy. Wow. They then transferred to Tesla. And then 2 weeks later, they actually had the split. And that's actually where I capped all my Tesla shares from. No, I'm very much with Ted on it. I mean, they could easily get to 3 trillion. I would even go a little bit further because, as Ted mentioned, they've got all these other revenue streams coming in. The energy side of it alone, the heat pump side. I mean, the heat pump market by itself for the HVAC system could be a whole entire entity and family on its own. I mean, and they could spin that out and make that a 500 billion on its own. So I easily foresee, that 3 trillion, maybe even a little bit more, 3.5 on that setup. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've been thinking the same thing for a long time, just on how underrated the energy side of the business is. But I think there's just been this increased skepticism because if you look at their solar and storage deployment numbers, they really haven't moved materially, and they're not really contributing materially to the company's financials today. So I think most analysts just say, all right, well, it's worth roughly zero. And so they don't include anything.
Well,
and I agree
will
with you
say,
in the long term. Those,
you know, Matt, when I was coming up here on the road trip up here, 2 of the EA stations that I went to actually had Tesla mega packs in line with the charging systems. And they actually,
oh really?
and I've got pictures of them where, you know, you've got 2 Tesla mega packs that are charged, you know, basically providing grid stability to the EA chargers, and actually providing that stability. And I think that proves the point right there that, you know, these now become their own solar powered, you know, self-sustaining systems on their own, to provide their battery charging system. And I could easily see where Tesla Energy and the energy section, and I'm breaking the Tesla Energy section into 2, the solar and the battery. I mean, the mega pack systems, you've seen them deployed in Australia, you've seen them deployed. We've seen them destroyed, but you've also seen them deployed in Texas. And you've seen that what they can do and how they can grid stabilize. I mean, Texas, when we had the freeze, in my neighborhood, it was me and 3 other people that were the only ones that were, you know, online for the next 3 weeks, because we all had Tesla Powerwalls and we had solar. So we were basically our own islands. We had our neighbors coming around. Hey, can I charge my phone? Hey, can I, you know, I need to boil a pot of water. I need to do all this basic stuff that we take for granted. And they were like, and they came to us because we had the power to do it. And, you know, of course, you know, during the day, we went completely, you know, solar charged, and we bought the Powerwalls up. I have 4 Powerwalls at my house in Texas. And it provides, you know, all the energy I need. I even did a test drive one day during the summer, and, you know, summer Texas, you know, we're 115 degrees, and I kill the power to the grid coming in, and I go off grid for 3 weeks, 4 weeks with no problems. I usually get a phone call from Tesla saying, "Hey, we're not able to reach your grid. Could you verify that it's still good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's still good. I'm just doing an off-grid test on it, because it's just that sustainable." And I think that the energy section on its own could break out and be its own trillion-dollar evaluation company on its own.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's probably going to take a long time to get there, because it's so hardware centric. It's going to take a very long time to, and frankly, the margins I think on the software side are pretty small to Tesla. So I think you're right, but I think that's a long game objective. I think it'll take a while before it actually gets there.
I think it will when basically with both these companies, Rivian and Tesla, they just need time to execute, because there's, I mean, and RJ said it earlier, and Elon says it, there's not enough battery cells in the world to supply what these 2 companies want to do.
Yeah.
Right. I think you know, Rivian will continue to grow in its own way. You know, fleet, ecotourism, R1S, R1T, and all that. And Tesla will continue to grow, but I think it will still. What's fascinating about Tesla is it has the potential to unlock new areas of growth, new tranches of growth. You know, you have Optimus, you have FSD. I know they hired a geologist recently. I mean, like, they're going to go into mining. Well, guess what? Oh, who has a mining company as well? Well, not really mining, but a boring company that doesn't really do anything special except bring the cost and efficiency down.
Yeah.
But that alone is already worth it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, great. We need to dig something up. All right, let's go ahead and let's use a boring tunnel machine and let's go down.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like a very unique proposition for this, you know, X Holdings, all of us, you know, Tesla fans have in our head.
It's tough. It's tough because I feel like, you know, the way I think about Rivian, or Matt and I probably think about Rivian, is probably the same way a lot of bears thought about Tesla back in like 2011, you know, or 2012, when the Model S was first coming out in the beginning. You know, we're not enthusiasts of the product ourselves. We don't own it, or we've driven in a couple. They're nice, and you know, you guys are developing conviction. And, you know, it's interesting. I saw a quote the other day that said, conviction starts out as delusion. and then it turns into conviction or something like that. So like to me, it's almost like feels delusional to think that Rivian can be worth 300, 400 billion in 5 years, or even should be worth 30 billion now. But that's how people thought about me back when Tesla was, starting out. And sure enough, it came through and it worked out, right? So, we have to study it a little closer, I think, Rivian. But it's you guys talking to you guys has really helped us understand a little bit more of the meat and potatoes behind Rivian's competitiveness or in the market and what they're going to specialize in, and the direction their company's going and such. So I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, RJ doesn't tweet as much, so we're just not going to get as much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
no,
it's not going to.
That's a good thing. RJ, if you're listening, don't tweet as much as Elon, please. Stay off the Twitterverse.
Yeah. But we're not plugged in. You guys are, at least Robert, you're very plugged into the online forum for Rivian enthusiasts. I am not into that right now. I probably should but anyway, great talking with you guys. The last 5 or 10 minutes, we like to talk about a charity that you each have picked that will donate. I think we donate $5,000 per interview, so $2,500 to each of these charities. And Ted, we'll start with you. Which charity did you pick, and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. I picked North Shore Animal League America. It's the largest no-kill shelter in America. I've been volunteering there for over a decade, but basically they help put homeless cats and dogs into forever homes.
That's great. Yeah, one of my neighbors does something like that with cats. I don't know what organization, but there's a lot of stray cats and dogs out there, but he has sometimes a couple dozen in his garage at once while they're waiting to be fixed or something, so he can move them without having them all be killed, which is nice. And yeah, that's a great cause. I mean, what is there anything have you always been an animal lover, or not that not that you have to be an animal lover to do this, but have you always been really into animals, or what brought you to this idea, I guess, or volunteering?
Yeah, absolutely. It's dogs and cats, they speak, but they can't speak to us. So we kind of have to do it for them.
Not until Neuralink, maybe one day. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe Neuralink. Oh, yeah, maybe. But it's there's too many animals that are bought. They're perfectly great pets that can be adopted for whatever reason. I adopted my own dogs, a husky and a Shih Tzu poodle, because the owners surrendered them for whatever reason. And it's the most rewarding thing ever. I love them so much. That's awesome. And yeah, there's just a lot. There's more animals than people. So, there's no reason why you should buy a dog or a cat at a pet store if you can adopt them. Mm-hmm. So, and yes, I've always loved animals. Always loved animals. Never had the chance to own one up until my adult years, but most certainly want to help others, especially misunderstood breeds, because I do work with dogs pretty well. So.
That's great. Thanks, Ted. Well, we'll make that donation shortly. And Robert, funny enough, you guys didn't talk beforehand, but you had a similar cause. Tell us about your charity and
yeah. So mine is Texas Husky Rescue, and it's Texas Husky Rescue is true to me because like Ted, I didn't get to own an animal to my adult years. And when we moved into the house in Houston, that's one thing I said to my wife was, yes, we can get a dog now. And we actually went to Texas Husky Rescue and tell us about them, because, I've always liked Huskies. And she was like, this is River. And River just came and sat in my wife's lap and just looked and said, I'm ready to go home now. So that was our first adoption. And then we got Stella, who was, she was neglected and abused. And we decided we were going to foster her. And I'm sure Ted will agree with this. You go to foster an animal and it never leaves. I actually have a shirt that says "Proud Foster Fail Family," because Stella now lives with the house. But I mean, Texas Husky Rescue is out there to help, provide information for Huskies, because they are good house pets as long as you know that they have the energy and the drive. And of course, you have a good set of earplugs, because more often than not, they'll talk your head off. So.
This was not coordinated. I did not know Robert had a husky. Okay.
Yeah, again, this was not coordinated at all.
Yeah, cool. No, that's special. Yeah, my wife and I have been talking about getting a dog at some point, maybe. But yeah, maybe we'll adopt one or whatnot. We'll see. I don't know if we're ready for the next responsibility. We have 3 kids at the moment, and they're keeping our hands full. And a dog is a big responsibility, and you got to take it serious. So we're thinking.
Yeah,
about
exactly.
it.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's really appreciate you taking the time to educate us on Rivian and kind of have a friendly debate on where the company goes from here. And it's been really a pleasure to pick your brain and get to know a bit more of the bull case. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks.